In this video, I'm going to be making pizza. I feel like this is content, so I'm going to do it. Okay, let's put on. Okay, you can ignore that. That's just me putting on the water so we can wait for it to warm up. Then we're going to get like 4 cups and something. That much dough, yeah. It's like 4 cups and something. Usually I have a good feel for how much we need. When it's around like 220, 230, you know that's enough. Okay, that's good. Now we can move this aside. Actually, not yet. We're going to keep it here for a little bit. And we're going to get ourselves a teaspoon and a tablespoon. I know these aren't actually the proper measuring tools, but I don't have actual measuring cups, so I just use these. I need 1/4 a teaspoon of salt, so about that much. I'm probably wrong, but it might be half a teaspoon or 1/3, but it tastes fine to me. Okay, so next we're going to get okay, so next we need 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Actually, before we do that, since I don't want my tablespoon getting too dirty, we're going to take a measuring cup, which is what we're going to put the yeast and sugar and water in, and your sugar, and you're going to want to get. So you're going to want to get half a tablespoon, basically, of granulated sugar. That's about half. Maybe a little more, since I do want the yeast to really have the bread for the pizza dough rise, since we're going to be making a really thick crust pizza dough, and I really want it to rise, so I'm going to put a lot of this in. Okay, so now the water should be warm, and I'm going to get some of that. Actually, a little bit more will be fine. So you're going to want to get yourself about 125 mils, 110 mils, around about half. It's about milligrams equal to about half of the weight of your dough. Since I have 228, I got around 120. So then 120 milligrams of water, and adding like the 10 milligrams of volume that the sugar takes up, I technically got around 130. So now I'm going to go get the yeast. This yeast was generously given to me by my friends, because buying yeast on Amazon or trying to get yeast somewhere else takes forever. And there's not a lot of yeast going around. But there's enough to last until next year, so I'm fine. And you're going to want to get about 1 tablespoon of this. 1 teaspoon, I'm sorry. 1 teaspoon. Don't spill, don't spill, don't spill. Okay. Okay, there we go. Seal the instant yeast package really nice and tight. We don't want a lot of moisture or air getting inside this instant yeast. Okay, so now you're going to want to get your teaspoon and just start mixing the yeast and the warm water. There are probably going to be a lot of large chunks left behind, as you can see here. That's perfectly fine. If you want to make pizza, then you can leave these chunks behind because they won't really affect the final product too much. Okay, we're going to leave this aside to rest for roughly 5 minutes. But a better measure is actually when there's going to be a lot of air bubbles just coming from underneath the water, from the yeast onto the surface of the water. So when you see a lot of bubbles, that means that your yeast is ready. Okay, so now you're going to want to get 1 tablespoon of olive oil. This I always like to put extra of, since the olive oil really makes the dough a lot easier to knead. It's a little bit extra. There we go. And you can put your spoon aside. And actually, we're going to get that spoon back, and then you can use that to stir the yeast. You're going to want to stir it a lot, since in the corner, usually the oil really piles up in a corner. So you're going to want to stir that corner into the rest of the dough really, really well, since you don't want that oil getting into splotches. And you're going to want your spoon to kind of like press down on the dough to separate the oil, because the oil will make the yeast form into like little bits and I'm going to call them turds. It makes them into little turds or curds, and you're going to want to squeeze those curds to mix them in with the rest of the flour. Okay, so perfect timing. As you can see, our yeast is really, really bubbling, which means that we are ready to add it into our flour. Most recipes online say to do this slow. Add the yeast to the flour slowly, 1 teaspoon at a time, but that's for babies, so I'm going to just pour it in like this. And this is also a lot faster and a lot easier to do. I much prefer just pouring it in all at once. Okay. At this point, you're going to want to scrape off any extra yeast from this tablespoon or any mixing thing that you use for the yeast. If you use like a whisker or something like that, then don't bother trying this. Okay. And now you're going to want to take your teaspoon and then just lightly mix everything together until everything roughly starts to form into clumps. And actually, we can take our little weight that we use to measure the weight of stuff and put it back in the jar. And as you can see, now everything is pretty coagulated into big clumps, and it's not very wet anymore. So then you're going to want to use your fingers to scrape off this extra dough. No food waste. I mean minimum food waste. Okay. And then you're going to want to start kneading the dough. So to knead the dough, first of all, you want to get most of the yeast into a clump like this. And then you're going to want to scrape around the edges for any loose dough, and then press down on top of that loose dough. Then you flip the dough ball over. It's not really a ball, more like a pancake. And then you fold it in half, and then you knead it forward. And you can do this twice, 3 times, 4 times. And then repeat. Squeeze down in the dough, fold over, knead once, knead twice, knead 3 times, knead 4 times. This dough is a little bit more loose than I'd like it to be right now, since I used a little bit too hot of a water today, water temperature, but that's actually fine. You can just leave it to sit for a little bit more, or you can add more flour. So, unlike some recipes say, you really don't ever want to add baking powder into your flour. It's really going to subtract from the taste of the crust and not let it rise as much as it would. Also, I feel like this yeast flavor is something that is really desirable in your... The yeast flavor is something really desirable inside your crust, and the baking powder kind of takes that away. You might want to add baking powder inside bread if you're feeling like making it. Definitely not pizza crust or pizza dough. Okay, roll around, squeeze, fold over, roll around, squeeze, fold over. Now there's a lot of this dry stuff that is not very easily picked up. And right now you're going to want to make like a little hole in your dough, and then put this in, and then fold over, squeeze. Do this multiple times to make sure that it's all well and mixed up. I'm not too good at kneading dough yet, but what you want to, if you're, you really want to keep your bowl clean. Not a lot of flour just laying around, and that'll be important later. And if you're really good at kneading dough, then once you're done, it should look brand new in the bowl. It should be as clean as when you found it, but I'm not that great. So now we're gonna fold over, knead once, knead twice, 3 times, 4 times. Now this is going to take a little bit, so I'm probably going to speed this part up. Okay, so something relatively undesirable is happening to my pizza dough right now. And what that undesirable thing is as you can see, it's kind of cracking and it doesn't really want to fold in on itself. So if this happens, which probably happened because I added a little too much olive oil, you're going to want to get a little bit of extra water. It's not a lot, just about this much, and then pour it onto your pizza dough. And I've learned from the past that a little water makes a big difference. So you're not going to want to add too much. And I added a little bit too much water, so now you're really just going to want to do this. Okay, now the dough looks pretty good. But now, since it's really, really wet, you're going to want to get your dough again. Get a handful and just sprinkle it on your dough. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. And your dough is basically ready. Now, the very important part is to set the dough to rise. So there are 3 things to note about rising. The first thing is that this rises very quickly. And it's only going to take about like 1 hour and 30 minutes to double in size. And when it doubles in size, you're going to want to, that's when it's going to be done. The second thing important to note is that while it's rising, it gets really, really sticky. So you're going to want to take out your dough on one hand and put it on like a cutting board or something, or one stick, and you're going to want to get olive oil or any other oil actually, and then pour a tad bit into your bowl. I'm gonna do this. Rub the olive oil all around the bottom and around the sides. And then you're going to go get your piece of dough back again. Oh, it got a few poppy seeds on it. Well, anyways, then you're going to roll it in the olive oil. You're going to let it sit here. The third thing to note is that the dough, it doesn't rise if it's not covered. So you're really going to want to cover your dough with something like plastic wrap. I'm using Glad since that is my #1 trusted brand. And then you're going to want to take like the cover of a frying pan, just something to hold it down, a weight. Okay, and now I'm going to put my Glad wrap back, and now I'm just going to clean everything up. It's 5:18 now, and our pizza dough has more than doubled in size. So now we can set our oven to a temperature. So first of all, I like to do 405 because my oven seems to always be warmer than it actually is. And I'm going to start preheat. So as you can see, our pizza dough has gotten really big. But now what we don't need is this bowl anymore. So we can put this to the side. And what we'll need now is a vegetable cutting board and a knife. Here we are. I'm going to run this knife under some cold water. This way it's easier to cut. I've got some onions and a teeny tiny one that I didn't finish using this morning. I have some bell peppers, which I'm going to wash. These are really small bell peppers. And I also have some oregano. Don't need it dried, I prefer it fresh. I don't use oregano often, so I'm not that experienced with it. Anyways. Okay. I'm also going to get a bowl so I can put the vegetables that I've cut off to the side. So now you can pretty much put this into the bowl. Doesn't need to be like shreds or anything like that. You can just cut them into slices. Okay. Here is a freshly peeled onion. You're going to want to use a knife to cut a little opening on the onion skin. So this way you can peel your desired amount off. And this is really what we're looking for. This and this. All of this really limbly stuff that's not very hard, you can just throw away. It kind of fries up, kind of burns when you put it in the oven. So then we'll just put our onion in a bag and into the refrigerator it goes. So when you cut onions, you normally want to cut them really quickly right after you take them out of the refrigerator. This way it doesn't hurt your eyes. But I have this weird mutation and I don't understand how it works, but I don't cry when I cut onions. So these have already been taken out of the refrigerator for a while since I've been peeling them. And then I'm going to cut them into larger slices. And then we're gonna put those in here. Yep, and that's the sound of the oven. It's preheated to 405 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, now we're going to want to cut our bell peppers. These caps you can just throw away. Oh shoot, I'm so stupid. I accidentally touched my eyes after cutting the onions. Even though I don't cry when I cut them, if I touch my eyes, it still hurts nonetheless. You want to cut them into like little things like this. This is a little bit thick, so actually never mind. It's fine. You want to throw these caps away. Okay, that's basically all the vegetables you need to prepare. We can go rinse our knife and our cutting board. So now you're going to want to get this guy, which is your baking pan. Mine is really, really thick and it's for pizza. I prefer to get spray on oil since it's really easy to use. Okay. So now you're going to want to get your dough back. Pizza dough is right over here in this wooden box. You're going to want to take off the weight and also your plastic sheet. You can throw your plastic sheet away now. And here's your dough. It's really, really fluffy. And you're going to want to punch it a few times to squeeze out the air. This way there's not too complications when spreading it across the baking pan like such. My pizza is really messy, but that's completely fine with me. If you want your pizza to be neater, then you should take more time to make your pizza. I'm a bit in a rush today. I'm a bit hungry because I've been drawing, doing art, and it's for a wedding thank you, something like that. It was requested by one of my friends for their friend that's getting married. Okay. Now that you've got your pizza spread out, your dough spread out in your pizza baking pan, this dough is really thick, then you're going to want to get your tomato sauce. I know most restaurants use fancy tomato sauce. Ketchup works just the same. It's really amazing, and it makes the pizza taste sweet, which I really like in my pizza. So. Now, you might be tempted to use a brush to spread the ketchup around and I've really been and I've done it a few times, but it wastes a lot of the sauce you put onto the pizza. So there's a better way to do it, and that's going to be with the pepperoni that I'm using. And then just kind of spread it around with your pepperoni. And then you put your pepperoni in the middle. I want a bit more pepperoni. Yeah, that works. Okay, there we go. Okay, so next, you want to take your vegetables and just kind of like sprinkle them around on your pizza. You don't really need a lot since, well, at least I don't need a lot because my baking pan is really, really small. I do have a larger baking pan, which is this one, but I prefer not to use it since this one usually bakes better. I usually use the other one for like croissants and scones and stuff that really needs to be separated. Pizza is just one body, so it doesn't need that. When I use oregano, I'm really not sure whether to put it before or after I cook the pizza. So I am fine with so I just put a little bit on before and a little bit after. A few stalks. This much looks good to me. I'm going to put the rest back in the bag and into the refrigerator. This is new oregano, so it's really, really messy and it has a lot of leaves falling out. So then I'm going to just roll the oregano a bit in my hands to bring out the oils and the flavors. And you're going to want to kind of try to like rip it apart a little bit, sprinkle it around. There we go. Very nice. So what we need next is cheese, my favorite part of any pizza. I use mozzarella cheese, as you can see here. And it's my favorite. It says tear here to open, but I usually don't tear it because my hands are unsteady and unreliable. And they often, for resealable packages like these, it usually kind of just breaks the reseal. So okay, now I'm going to just spread this around a little bit. I want more cheese. It really doesn't matter. You can actually have pizza without cheese, which is something I learned about 5 months ago. And I was like, this person who knows memes, I was surprised Pikachu face. Because I'm like, what's pizza without cheese? But it turns out, yes, you can actually subtract the cheese from your pizza and just have vegetables and pepperoni and your seasonings just straight on top, and it gives the vegetables crispier flavor because they don't have that layer of mozzarella that needs to be cooked first. Okay. And this is pretty much the pizza, and now it's ready to go into the oven. So now that I've put the pizza in the oven, it's time to turn on the timer, and I usually do 20 minutes because of my specific baking pan, but the suggested amount is 15 minutes for a baking pan that is really wide open, but my baking pan bakes well, but it's really thick and enclosed, so 20 minutes is normally how much I do. Start, and we'll wait 20. Well, would you look at that? It's ready. Okay, so off, click the timer. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, yeah. That looks epic. Okay. Wow. That looks amazing. Okay, wait a second. Well, since waves of oregano have arrived to the surface of the pizza and looks about ready, I'm going to add my other ingredient, which is arugula, which has been soaking in here since lunch. Squeeze the water out. Let's put it around on the pizza. Give it a little bit of an artisan feel. Squeezing the life out of this arugula over here. Okay. Having fun making steam noises here. Okay. So, that's the pizza. And let's go cut it. Okay. Pizza cutter, gonna run on it under some cold water. I'm gonna get myself a glove. Stabilize it while I'm cutting. It's really hard to cut pizza while it's on a metal surface. Okay. Shoot. Okay, shaking off the arugula was a pretty bad idea. And we can get ourselves a spatula and okay, just do like this. Then we can and ta-da! That's a piece of the pizza. Side view. Oh, it fell. My filming skills are 0 out of 10. Oof. Literally just ruined this piece of pizza. Okay, I'll just put it off to the side. Oops. Accidentally burned myself there by touching the baking tray. So I'm going to go put my hand under some cold water. And that's it. That is the pizza. Thank you for watching.